So when Ryzen was first launched, it was claimed to be this multitasking monster, very appealing for creators, and I can finally attest to that claim, and I am so happy I switched to the 8-core 16-thread 1700X CPU for my main workstation PC. Find out why right after this. Invest in storage that makes a difference. Choose Toshiba RD400 NVMe SSDs that are incredibly fast and reliable, backed by advanced warranty programs, so you can focus on what matters. RD400. Check it out in the description below. So goodbye 6700K, you have served me very well, and remember I started using the Skylake machine because it was rendering videos faster than my previous 6-core workstation machine. So in this video let's talk about my experience with the 1700X, how it handles not just video editing but other intensive tasks for my everyday life in front of the computer. So we're not just exporting videos, but we're doing exporting videos while playing games, exporting videos while doing many other things in the background, and it absolutely crushes the 6700K.
I'm sorry, it's not me, it's you. I want to do other things while I'm exporting video. I want to see 12 CPU utilization bars and not just 8. We've had a good run, but really, I just want to try something new. Ryzen baby, let's see if it's for the cool kids after all.
So I'm very excited about the new motherboard. I went from the Z270 Maximus 8 Hero Alpha to the Crosshair 6 Hero and absolutely love the rear I/O. So many USB ports plus that Type-C for when that eventually catches up. I am only using 32 gigabytes of RAM instead of the 64 I had on the Skylake machine, but I gotta be honest, it's very refreshing to have an AMD CPU once again. Right now, I'm only assembling a test system inside the S340 and I'm still waiting on a case. Very excited to show you guys what I'll be using, plus taking a whole different approach on cooling. So subscribe to not miss that upcoming video. And in order to properly test the 1700X in my personal sort of workflow environment, I had to design a few benchmarks to explore its full potential. So I tested a few synthetic benchmarks, multiple render tests with Adobe Premiere in 4K, 1080p and 1080p 60. And for my multi-stress environment, I had a game downloading in Steam. I was watching a 4K video, refreshing a web page every 10 seconds while exporting a video, which is a very common scenario in my day life. And then for the last test, I was rendering the video in the background while playing Overwatch and recording frame times and exporting times to see which CPU was faster. And for the GPU, I'm sticking with a GTX 1080 from EVGA, the FTW edition. It has served me very well. It's a super quiet card and I can overclock it to easily 2 GHz without breaking a sweat. So the first deal of business was to update the BIOS on the motherboard, as the system would constantly crash if I tinkered with any of the overclock settings. But damn, seeing all 16 threads occupied at full load, that is a happy feeling, my friends. Now let's get on with the benchmarks, and up first is the Firestrike benchmark that scores less on AMD, about 7% loss, that we don't see anymore with the Firestrike Ultra. With the DX12 TimeSpy benchmark, the AMD system on the CPU side scores significantly higher, and again in this multi-threaded workflow like CINEBENCH R15, my overclocked 1700X gets a 40% better score versus the overclocked 6700K. Moving on to Premiere, this is the most important for my daily use. Exporting a 1-minute 4K file on Ryzen is much faster, although I am curious why we don't see a difference in encoding times between stock and overclock on the 1700X. The same story continues by exporting a 1080p file. Again, the overclock on the 1700X doesn't seem to matter, but it is faster versus the Skylake machine. Where I did notice a difference in faster render times is with a 9-minute 1080p 60 export, with the 1700X completing the task much faster, saving us over 3 minutes when both CPUs are overclocked. But what I was most surprised about is the multitasking benchmark, in which I had that 4K video playing in the background, a web page refreshing, downloading a game, and rendering that 9-minute vlog. It seems that the extra threads on the 1700X really helped to export that video much faster in comparison, with only a 6% increase on export times versus nothing in the background, while the Skylake machine took a 16% hit on export times. More interestingly though, when I tried to game while exporting a video in the background, here are my encoding times. Again, the 1700X pulls far ahead, but surprisingly in comparison to the control point of rendering the video without playing the game, it took 30% more time to render the video on the overclocked 1700X versus only 22% more time at stock settings. I'm not sure why this is happening in comparison to the control point, but still we are exporting faster when we are overclocked, but seeing that 30 versus 20% difference to the control point is interesting and will have to be explored. As far as the gameplay goes, on a Skylake machine, Overwatch was totally unplayable. A lot of micro stutter, it was very hard to aim, very unpleasant, while a totally different experience on the 1700X, with much smoother aim, still not super comfortable, but a lot more playable, with actually higher FPS and much stronger 99th percentile frame rate, so you would not dip as low or as often as on the 6700K. I also performed warp stabilizer, which I use quite often, so the Skylake chip takes the win here, but my editing workflow revolves around proxies, rendering a lower resolution file with which you edit, and it's much smoother playback on the timeline, but when it comes to exporting it, you're using the full 4K resolution files. So exporting those proxies on the 1700X again was a much faster experience versus the Skylake chip. Oh hey there, NCIX.com is Canada's leading e-tailer for anything your mind desires. Just keep within those categories, which are plenty, and get tempted by the weekly deals. Visit NCIX.com for all them sweet deals. So what I gotta say, I'm impressed. I was not expecting the 1700X to be much faster with those render times. I thought that the 6700K and the 4.5 GHz, because of those higher frequencies, would be, you know, just like a clear win in Adobe Premiere, because Adobe loves clock speeds. But with the 8-core 16 threads, it seems to, you know, give that balance, even though we have a much lower frequency. So I can save time on exporting and can comfortably do things in the background. So let's say creating my thumbnails in Photoshop while watching a 4K video without having that significant hit on the encoding times that we saw with the Skylake machine. So in this video, I want to show the performance metrics that matter to me. So if you want to see the full gaming benchmarks, I'll link our full review down in the description below. So what is left to do now is get that case for me and also replace the beefier cooler so that we can get those temperatures under control and see how far we can push it if the 4 GHz mark gives us any extra performance. So make sure to subscribe for all that. So guys, let me know if you're as impressed with the performance of the 1700X as I am, and also stay tuned for all the updates that are coming up very soon. I'm Dmitry with Canucks. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.